Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you could finally breathe? Not because the room was empty, but because the space itself felt intentional. Calm, complete. Now think about your social media feed, every inch filled, every moment documented, every silence interrupted by noise. What if I told you that ancient Japanese philosophy has a name for what we've lost in the digital age? It's called Ma, the power of empty space. And understanding it might completely change how you see social media, and more importantly, how you see your life. Today, we're diving into why some of the most grounded people you know don't post on social media. Not because they're hiding, because they understand something that took Japanese masters centuries to perfect. That what you don't say is just as important as what you do. That empty space gives meaning to everything around it. That silence isn't absence, it's presence. Before I show you exactly how this works, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments. Do you fill every moment of your life with content, or do you leave space for meaning? This really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your attention. Now back to the video. Let me tell you about a woman named Akiko. Modern-day Tokyo, 2019. Akiko was a graphic designer, 28 years old, successful career, beautiful apartment in Shibuya. But she had a problem she didn't even know existed. Her life had become noise. She documented everything. Morning coffee, perfect angle, natural light. Gym session, mirror selfie, motivational caption. Lunch with friends, group photo, everyone smiling. Evening walk, sunset, poetic quote. Her feed looked perfect. Her life felt empty. One day, her grandmother visited from Kyoto. Traditional woman, 82 years old, spent most of her life in a temple. She looked at Akiko's apartment. So much noise, child, where is the Ma? Akiko was confused. Ma, what do you mean, grandmother? The old woman pointed at the walls covered in photos, the shelves packed with decorations, the coffee table buried under magazines. No space to breathe, no room for life to exist. You've filled everything. When everything is full, nothing has meaning. Her grandmother sat down and drew the kanji character for Ma on a piece of paper. Two symbols, a gate above, the sun below. It means the space where light comes through. The pause between sounds, the silence between words, the emptiness that gives shape to everything around it. Akiko stared at the character. I don't understand. Why is empty space important? The grandmother smiled. Because without empty space, there is no room for anything to become. A painting isn't beautiful because of the brushstrokes. It's beautiful because of the space between them. A conversation isn't meaningful because of the words. It's meaningful because of the silence that lets you think. Your life isn't valuable because you fill it with moments. It's valuable because you leave space. For meaning to grow, something about those words broke through Akiko's noise. She looked at her phone, at the thousands of photos, at the endless scroll of documented moments, at the careful curation of a life that felt increasingly hollow. She asked grandmother, why do I feel so tired all the time? Because you're trying to fill every gap, every silence, every empty moment. You don't allow Ma to exist in your life, and without Ma there is no rest, there is no clarity. There is only noise pretending to be meaning. That night, Akiko did something radical. She deleted Instagram from her phone, not permanently, not dramatically, just temporarily. She wanted to see what would happen if she stopped filling the space. The first week was uncomfortable. She reached for her phone constantly, muscle memory. Every interesting moment triggered the reflex to capture it, to post it, to share it. But she didn't, she just experienced it. The second week, something strange happened. She started noticing details she'd never seen before. The way light moved across her kitchen counter in the morning, the sound of rain against her window, the taste of her coffee when she actually focused on drinking it instead of photographing it. By the third week, her entire experience of life had shifted. She went to dinner with friends. No one took photos. They just talked. They laughed. They were present. One friend asked, why aren't you posting anymore? Are you okay? Akiko smiled. I'm better than I've been in years. I'm finally living in the Ma. Here's what's happening psychologically when you stop filling every space with content. Research from Japan Honeywell shows that the concept of Ma is deeply rooted in Zen Buddhism, where emptiness isn't viewed as something negative, but as fertile ground for possibility. A space full of potential. When you constantly post, you're essentially removing all Ma from your life. You're filling every gap with performance, with documentation, with the need to be witnessed. But the human mind needs empty space. It needs pauses. It needs silence. Without it, you can't process. You can't reflect. You can't integrate experiences into meaning. A study on mindfulness and social media use found that people who take regular breaks from posting report significantly higher levels of emotional stability, not because they're avoiding connection, but because they're creating space for real connection to happen. Think about traditional Japanese art, the famous ink painting Pine Trees by Hasegawa Tohaku. Most of the canvas is empty. Just fog, just space. But that emptiness makes the few trees that are painted feel profound, powerful, meaningful. Your life is the same. When you post everything, nothing stands out. When you share every moment, no moment feels special. But when you create ma, when you leave intentional gaps, the moments you do share, or more importantly, the moments you experience privately, become profound. Akiko's grandmother explained this through ikebana, Japanese flower arrangement. In Western flower arrangements, you fill the vase. More flowers, more colors, more fullness. But in ikebana, the empty space around each stem is as important as the stem itself. The arrangement isn't complete because you've added everything. It's complete because you've left room for perception, for imagination, for meaning to exist. 6 months after deleting social media, Akiko's life looked completely different, not externally. She still had the same job, the same apartment, the same friends. But internally, everything had shifted. She traveled to Kyoto for work, old city, ancient temples. She spent an entire afternoon at Ryonjai, the famous rock garden. 15 rocks arranged on a bed of white gravel, massive amounts of empty space. Tourists rushed through, taking photos, checking them, moving on. Akiko sat for 2 hours, just looking, just being present with the ma. Something her grandmother said came back to her: the rocks aren't the art. The space between the rocks is the art. The emptiness teaches you to see. That evening, she called her grandmother. I understand now. Ma isn't about what you remove, it's about what you allow to exist. The grandmother's voice was warm. Tell me what you've learned. Akiko thought carefully. I used to think my life had value because I could prove it. Photos, posts, documentation. But I was so busy proving I was living that I forgot to actually live. Now I understand that the most valuable parts of my life, the parts that actually shape me, they happen in the spaces I used to think were empty. Modern research backs this up completely. Studies on the concept of ma show that it's about the perception of space and time, not just physical emptiness. It's described as an emptiness full of possibilities, like a promise yet to be fulfilled. When you fill every moment with content, you're essentially closing off all possibilities. You're deciding in advance what each moment means before you've even experienced it. People who understand ma, who practice it, they approach life differently. They don't document the sunset, they watch it. They don't post about the achievement, they feel it. They don't share every thought, they think it through first. Here's what happens inside your brain when you practice ma. When you create intentional pauses, when you leave space between activities, your default mode network activates. This is the brain state associated with creativity, insight, and self-reflection. But this network only activates during rest, during gaps between focused activity. If you're constantly stimulated, constantly posting, constantly consuming, you never enter this state. You never give your brain the space it needs to process, to integrate, to create meaning from experience. That's why people who don't post often seem more grounded, more thoughtful, more present. Not because they're naturally that way, because they've created the space for those qualities to develop. 1 year after her grandmother's visit, Akiko returned to social media, but differently. She posted once a month. Maybe, not because she was trying to be mysterious or play hard to get, because she finally understood that her life didn't need constant documentation to have value. The space between posts, the ma, that's where her actual life happened. Her friend commented, "You barely post anymore. What's going on with you?" Akiko replied, "Everything. I'm just not turning it into content." There's a Japanese tea ceremony concept that embodies ma perfectly. During the ceremony, there are long periods of silence, deliberate pauses between each action. The host serves tea, there's silence, you drink, more silence. To Western participants, this feels uncomfortable, awkward, but to those who understand ma, these pauses are where the ceremony actually exists. The silence is where presence lives. The space is where connection happens. Your social media life is the opposite. No pauses, no silence, no space, just constant activity, constant documentation, constant performance. And the result is a life that looks full but feels empty. Here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, practice ma. You don't have to delete social media, just create intentional space. Experience one beautiful thing every day without documenting it. Have one meaningful conversation without sharing it. Achieve something without announcing it. Just let these moments exist in the space between posts. Let them be yours alone, and notice what happens. Notice how these undocumented moments start to feel more real than the documented ones. Notice how your sense of self becomes less dependent on external validation. Notice how life starts to feel like life again instead of content creation. Because the truth that ancient Japanese masters understood is this: the space between things is where meaning lives. The pause between breaths is where you find yourself. The silence between words is where truth emerges. And the gap between posts is where your actual life exists. Ma isn't about doing less, it's about being more. It's not about emptiness, it's about fullness that doesn't need to be filled. It's not about hiding your life, it's about living it so completely that you don't need anyone else to witness it to know it was real. If this video changed how you think about social media and presence, I invite you to subscribe, like, and share it with someone who's drowning in noise and needs to discover the power of space. And remember, the most meaningful part of your life isn't what everyone sees, it's what you keep in the ma. Until next time, create space, find silence, and walk the path.